Welcome into the NFL opening line report. Drew Martin, Teddy covers, getting you ready for getting on the right side of some of these line moves. It is Monday, WagerTalk YouTube channel. Welcome on into the live chat box. Teddy, without further ado, happy Monday morning to you. Welcome on in, buddy.
Hey, great to be here. Well, listen, guys, the views for this show have gone through the roof. We really appreciate it. All the comments. If you guys go and you want to comment, we love comments in the live chat. Please comment in the YouTube, when it gets posted on YouTube after the show. Those comments are the ones that matter the most. So both Drew and I got in there multiple times last week to answer questions. Do our best to answer all your questions and comments if you put those comments in the chat. Thank you so much. Let's talk some NFL Week 4 football. Ready to roll, my friend.
We got NFL Week 4, absolutely. Starting on Thursday, Detroit Lions, Green Bay Packers here, Teddy. It's 8:15 Eastern, 5:15 Pacific kick in Lambeau Field. We are seeing the Lions minus 1.5 point favorites at most shops. There is a -1 out there. 45.5 being the total. Lions at Packers to kick off Week 4 here in Lambeau Field.
Sure. So if this is your first time watching the show, just to let you know, I'm going to give 4 lines for each and every game. I'm going to give you the look-ahead line. That was the bettable line for these games last week. I used the Westgate numbers from here in Las Vegas, the Superbook numbers. I'm going to give you my powering number for every game. I'm going to talk about where the opener was last night and then where the money has come so far. So with the Lions and the Packers, look-ahead line here was Pick'em, total of 46. My powering number for the game is Pick'em. Lions opened minus 1.5. 44.5. We're still seeing 1.5, but the total sitting now at 45.5, the prevailing number. We have seen some over money for Detroit and Green Bay, even though it's a divisional matchup on Thursday night. The Thursday night games not always the most pretty to watch. Detroit coming off a solid bounce back showing yesterday at home against Atlanta. I mean, the defense controlled the game. They allowed 2.8 yards per play. The team had 7 sacks. Dan Campbell after the game, quote, "We look like a hungry, violent defense," which is obviously what Detroit was looking for this year after all their defensive woes last year. That said, they didn't take full advantage of Atlanta's mistakes, penalties, red zone failures. It was not clean football from Detroit yesterday. And of course, they do have some significant injuries on the offensive line. Tackle Taylor Decker missed yesterday's game. Tackle Matt Nelson and tackle Dan Skipper both got hurt during the game. So Detroit with some potentially significant concerns for their offensive line. Boy, that was a nice win for Green Bay. You know, scoring 18 points the last 11 minutes, especially for a guy like me that has a Packers over 7.5 wins ticket in their pocket as a 5% play. So Green Bay's rally from behind yesterday, certainly. And I love what Matt LaFleur did. Something smart. We know what the smart coaches do. They're down 14. They score a touchdown, and LaFleur went for 2. At that point, now it's a 6-point game. That's how they won, because they went for 2 when they were down 14, which is the advanced metrics smart move. Jordan Love was really good yesterday. Romeo Doubs, wide receiver. Quote, "If you look at the cameras, just watching him in the huddle, pre-snap and whatnot, his poise is amazing. And that's one trait I continue to emphasize on him, because any other quarterback in that situation would lose his mind." Matt LaFleur, after the 17-point deficit got erased, quote, "I've never been a part of a win like this. The guys in the locker room, they believe in one another, and they continued to battle. Don't know if I love the spot for Green Bay coming off that win, and their injury report is not pretty. They're without Jair Alexander, Aaron Jones, Christian Watson, David Bakhtiari, and Elgton Jenkins yesterday, all of whom are supposed to be starters for this football team." So Green Bay, like Detroit, the injuries starting to pile up.
Great start to Week 4 here in Lambeau, and we'll flip the script to Sunday's slate, guys, going down in rotation order. We're also going to flip the script to the month of October, October 1st, Sunday. Teddy, we're starting off 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 a.m. Pacific time. On the other side of the pond here, Wembley Stadium in London, England, Atlanta Falcons, Jacksonville Jaguars. Teddy, we're seeing Jags laying -3 as the quote-unquote home team. 43.5 being the total. We like it anything over in London. Started us off on
And it's
Sunday.
worth noting the Jags are going to spend another week in London. They play in London again in week 5. So most of the time, teams go to London, come back home, get their bye week. Jacksonville, not in that situation. They've got a pair of games. They've played more games at London than any other team they play in London just about every year. Look ahead line, Jacksonville, -3, 45.5. My powering number, Jacksonville, -3. Opened last night, Jacksonville, -3, 43.5, and that's exactly what we're looking at this morning. I would not be surprised if we see some Atlanta money. If I saw any inklings that we were going to see Atlanta money this morning, this game had emergency betting alert potential. But we haven't seen any yet. I'm not convinced we will. And again, my number's 3. The look ahead was 3. I'm not convinced that this line is going to go down to 2.5. That said, you got to put a red flag about Jacksonville right now. I mean, they looked a lot like they did last year when Jacksonville consistently underachieved. Slow starts, drop passes, false starts, penalties, mistakes. You know, the first 5 drives ended missed field goal, punt, blocked field goal, punt, fumble. They're down 17-0 to Houston. You know, a team, a divisional rival who has owned them on their own field. You know, Doug Peterson. We need to coach better. We need to play better. We need to execute better. Whether we're reading our press clippings, we need to get out of our own way right now. We need to evaluate ourselves, beginning with me. We have to figure out how to win a game. There's certainly urgency for Jacksonville off those 2 losses. That said, even though they play in London every year, they haven't been good in London. 1-3 straight up and against the spread the last 4 since 2018. The only win came by a field goal, not enough to cover this point spread. Jacksonville. I'm not saying the markets are crashing on them, but the markets certainly aren't impressed with what the Jags have done through the first couple of weeks of the season. For the Atlanta side, look, I've said this every game so far. We're 3 games in. I think Desmond Ridder is hopeless. All right. I'm not seeing any progress. I'm not seeing anything that tells me this guy is going to be an NFL quarterback. He had 45 dropbacks against the Lions. 45 times he dropped back to pass, 139 net yards. Sacked 7 times. They gained only 2.8 yards per play on offense. Arthur Smith, they took us out of our rhythm early, and we never got it back. Although Ridder said that it was more about them than about Detroit. There's a lot of times in our situation we go out there and we beat ourselves and not play to our full potential. So 2 teams that should be very interested in this one, both teams coming off shoddy showings. The sense of urgency might be there for the Jaguars even more, but on the other hand, maybe Jacksonville isn't very good. They certainly haven't looked all that good through the first couple of weeks of the season. The offensive line not holding up for the Jags.
Good stuff, Teddy, as we hit the chat box here. Welcome in Tyrone Boyd, Bam Golf as well. Anthony, a couple questions. Thanks for that, guys. Titans CT in the house. Paul from Essex, England. They're on site for the Atlanta-Jacksonville game. Guys, we got 1 o'clock Eastern, a whole bunch of them here on Sunday. Starting off with a big one, Teddy. Miami Dolphins, red hot. 70 points this past weekend, won 6 straight against the spread going back to last season. 54 being the total here. -2.5. There are a couple -3s popping up, Teddy. That is the Buffalo Bills as the home favorite. Dolphins head up to New York. What are we thinking in the AFC East battle?
Yeah, this is a mixed line, right? I mean, so look ahead with Buffalo -3, total of 50.5. My powering number is -2.5. I've been a little bit below market on the Bills, and that has not served me well the last couple of weeks, unfortunately. I played against Buffalo on Sunday. That was my only NFL loser. It was a winning week in the NFL, no complaints. But my read on the Bills, well, I think my read on the Bills is right. My read on the Commanders for that game couldn't have been more wrong. That being said, look at line 3, my powering number 2.5. Opened up last night, split line 2.5, 3, total 53.5. And we're seeing a split line, right? There's more 2.5s than 3s out there right now. But this is one of those games right now. If you want to play Buffalo, find a 2.5. You want to play Miami, find a 3. They're both available as we speak. Every half point does matter. Look, Miami was up 56-13 before their first punt yesterday. They had 726 yards of total offense, 10 touchdowns, 0 field goals. That was without Waddle in the lineup, by the way. And, of course, Mike McDaniel did the right thing. They could have set the all-time record 4 points scored in an NFL game, but McDaniel took a knee and essentially ran out the clock. It felt like chasing points and chasing a record. That's not what we came to the game to do. Raheem Mostert. To be able to put up 70 points, I think it's going to put a lot of teams on notice that we're nothing to play with. We're that team, just to put it bluntly. The market certainly, Miami's anonymity, I don't know if they were anonymous. They're not anonymous anymore after the 70-point outburst yesterday. They certainly have the makings of one might call a public team, a whole lot of offense for the Dolphins. Look, Buffalo played their best game of the season yesterday. The defense had 9 sacks and forced 5 turnovers, absolutely controlled the game. Micah Hyde after the contest, it looks like I didn't even play today. All white jersey, not even dirty. The guys up front were just getting after the quarterback. It was awesome to see. They've outscored opponents 75-13 the last 2 weeks since losing to the Jets in week 1. There would have been a shutout, but the Commanders kicked a 51-yard field goal with 46 seconds left. Offensive line held up. Buffalo certainly played a really good game yesterday. Can they do it again and have the level of success against Miami? This game got war written all over it. I would anticipate we're likely to see the public like Miami in this game and the pros look at the Buffalo side. That's just my guess, but I wouldn't be surprised there's a sharp square divide in this one. Of course, sharp square divide games yesterday, the pros got hammered and the Joes did very well. So just because there's a sharp square divide doesn't mean that the sharp side is necessarily going to be the right side. Sharp slope. The Commanders yesterday, just one of, there were 4 different sides that were the popular wise guy sides. Those games 0-4 against the spread.
Love the stats there, Teddy. 56 points before the first punt. That was a good one. Okay, guys, comment below if which side you're on here. Teddy mentioned Mike McDaniel doing the right thing, not scoring at the end. I don't know, to get a plaque in the NFL Hall of Fame, to kick a field goal, they're all professionals. I say the right thing would have been go get it done. Be the highest scoring, turnout team total, highest scoring points in any game. Should have taken it. So let us know how you feel about that in the comments below. Teddy, we got Minnesota and Carolina up next. Also 1 o'clock Eastern kick here. We're seeing the Vikings -3.5 as the road favorite, 45 being the total. Vikings at Panthers here, Teddy.
Yeah, look ahead line here. Minnesota -2.5 and 44. My powering number has the Vikings -2.5. The markets open 3, 44.5. And we've seen over money, which Minnesota's a dead nuts over team. I get that. And we've seen Vikings money. They're betting against Carolina right now. And Minnesota did a lot of things right in yesterday's game. They won the rushing yards 130-30, although they did allow 259 rushing yards to Philly the last week, and they still gave up 7.4 yards per play. Last year, Minnesota's 11-0 in one-score games. This year, they're 0-3. They've had 7 fumbles this year. Talk about fumble luck. They've lost 7 fumbles this year. -7 turnover margin, worst in the NFL, including, they had to win yesterday's game. All right. After they get the stop on 4th down, they need 24 yards. They got a $1.46 left. They got a first down on penalty. They converted a 4th down to get another one. You got to put the biscuit in the basket and win that game. They didn't. Cousins threw the interception on 1st and goal with 12 seconds left. His quote after the game, "We dug ourselves a hole. We've got a long way to climb out." There have been 4 teams since 1990 that have made the playoffs after an 0-3 start. The 92 Chargers, the 95 Lions, the 98 Bills, and the 2018 Texans. Minnesota does not feel like one of those type of teams. They really don't. But, Carolina, and we don't know yet if it's going to be Andy Dalton or Bryce Young. One would think Bryce Young will come back this week. And Dalton led that first touchdown drive, and he's on the sideline looking a little bit smug. I'm like, don't be looking smug in the second quarter. But Carolina's game plan, baffling to me. 63 dropbacks, only 12 rushes in a competitive game. This team can't run at all. Miles Sanders has 45 carries this season, as long as 15. They had 8 false starts out of 13 penalties. Frank Reich, the number of penalties was totally excusable. You don't come into Seattle and throw 58 times and win many games. That was not the formula we wanted. The run game was completely non-existent. Worth noting, Jack Thompson on IR, J.C. Horn on IR, and they lost a couple of more guys in the secondary yesterday. This defense, which at times has looked pretty good this season, Carolina suffering some significant injury woes. That's perhaps a big part of the reason why the money's flowing on Minnesota this morning, although I don't think it gets higher than 3.5. This is not an emergency betting alert situation.
Teddy, next game up, 1 o'clock Eastern here, 257, 258. The rotation numbers, we're making our way down. Denver Broncos, Chicago Bears, the money-burning matchup of week 4 here. Both teams 0-3 straight up and 0-3 against the spread. -3, -3.5 at one shop. That's the Broncos as the road favorite. 46 being the total in Soldier Field.
Look headline, Denver -1.5, 44.5. My powering number, Denver -2.5. The markets opened 3.5 and 46 last night. And we're seeing, let's call it is a split line right now. There are 3s, there are 3.5s. If you want to lay, find a 3. If you want to take, find a 3.5. This is an advantage that bettors have on Monday morning. One of the reasons why we do this show each and every Monday. So which team was worse yesterday? I don't know. These were the 2 worst teams in the NFL yesterday. Which team is theory? I mean, they were. There was. I mean, and that includes Washington, who was just as bad, and Atlanta was awful. There were a lot of really bad performances yesterday. No one was worse than Chicago and Denver. 2 teams that were absolutely blown off the field by halftime. Which team can bounce back? The quotes from Denver. And Russell Wilson threw for 300 yards in that game. No one's going to talk about it. They gave up 350 yards on the ground. That's quitting. 10 touchdowns, no field goals, that's quitting. Remember when Sean Payton said Nathaniel Hackett had done the worst coaching job? One of the worst coaching jobs in the history of the NFL? That quote, not aging well for Sean Payton. And the quotes after the game, that's what stands out to me. Kareem Jackson, safety. It definitely feels bigger than one game. Anytime you lose the way we lost, shit's embarrassing. Absolutely embarrassing. Like I said, we didn't do anything we put in place. Sean Payton, obviously that was embarrassing, tough to watch. I'm at a loss for words. Every once in a while in this league, you get your butt whipped, but that was more than that. It'd be one thing to say we're going to get on and go to the next game. We have to watch that tape. Monday's going to be tough for a lot of players, tough for a lot of coaches. Linebacker Alex Singleton, embarrassed, pissed. We're not happy with it. It was one of the most embarrassing games I've ever been a part of. Most embarrassing game I've ever watched. It's one game, as shitty as that is to say or whatever. It's one game we've got to learn. We'll never play worse. Obviously, there's something wrong. We talked about some chemistry issues with Denver and some of the weird quotes from Russell Wilson after they lost week 1. And Russell Wilson's quotes again yesterday were like, yeah, whatever. I'm getting paid. I worry about Denver's chemistry. But the Bears were like Michigan State. A team that faced off-field adversity, and then you get them on the field and they can't do anything. Adversity off the field and on the field, very difficult. Justin Fields getting ripped. I think Fields is fine. All right. There are 16 other problems that are bigger than Justin Fields. And leaving Fields out there to take big hits down 41-0 in a we didn't play hard game. Eberflus he's treading on thin ice. This quote stood out to me. We've got to keep this thing tight in our locker room. That's the most important thing. This is the head coach, Matt Eberflus. There's going to be a lot of outside noise, as there always is in the NFL. We played 3 games so far this season. We've got a great opportunity ahead of us. We've got 2 games in 11 days. They play next Thursday. So we're going to focus on that. I don't like that quote. We got to think this thing tight in our locker room. Their locker room shattered. Oh, by the way, their defense, devastating injuries everywhere. Eddie Jackson hurt. Tyreek Stevenson got concussion. Defensive backs Brisker and Johnson both hurt during the game. Josh Blackwell's dealing with a hamstring injury. Those are all defensive problems for a team that can't score on offense. In my mind, of the 2 teams more likely to bounce back, I'm calling Denver, not Chicago.
Teddy, next one up. Speaking of good defenses here, the Cleveland Browns hosting the Baltimore Ravens. 1 o'clock Eastern kick here. 41.5 being the total at most sports books as we're talking Monday morning, 10 a.m. Pacific, right here on the WagerTalk YouTube channel. NFL opening line report style. Teddy seeing 2.5. That's the Browns across the board as the slight home favorite.
Sure. This is a big difference from the look headline. Baltimore was -2.5, and the look headline total was 44.5. My powering number has the Browns -1, and now we're seeing a deluge of Cleveland money, 2.5. I'm not seeing clear signs this line is going to 3. So again, we're not in an emergency betting alert situation here right now, especially my powering number is 1. The market's already at 2.5. I'm not convinced we get to 3. And home favorite has not been Harbaugh's role. People seem to forget that. They've been bad consistently in that role. And look, I mean, it was a fluky result for Baltimore. The punt returner, if he doesn't call for the fair catch and kills the 3 seconds before the 2-minute warning, they probably take a knee in that ball game. And then Justin Tucker, who's been otherworldly, he missed his 61-yard game-winning field goal by what? Like less than a yard. When he hit it, I'm like, oh, that's good. That's Tucker. He makes them. But he missed it. The defense allowed only 3.9 yards per play. They did have 2 turnovers, and they did waste 2 good chances in overtime in score, with great field position. Lamar Jackson, quote, "We had plenty of opportunities in this game to finish, but it is what it is." They didn't get a PI flag on the key 4th down try. Lamar Jackson, quote, "Fight another day." It is worth noting the injury report for the Ravens. A little bit dicey. OBJ out. Marlon Humphrey was out. A couple starters in the offensive line. And they had injuries at running back and linebacker in yesterday's ball game. For Cleveland, look, I mean, the defensive line blew up the line of scrimmage. My clients and I cashed a ticket with the Browns yesterday. It was pretty easy. That was, I thought, a mismatch that you could see ahead of time. And it turned out to be a mismatch every bit as much on the field with that DL just controlling the flow. Deshaun Watson, there's bad with Deshaun Watson now. He had one of the worst decisions you'll ever see yesterday, where he was falling backwards and then threw the ball behind him, ended up being a 16-yard loss. They were lucky it wasn't a fumble return for a touchdown. But Deshaun Watson is making plays under pressure. He showed improvement. There's certainly a lot of talent in Cleveland. You can understand why the Browns were a hot team in the betting market before this season started. And obviously the market's liking Cleveland a lot more than Baltimore today. We've seen a 5-point move off the look-ahead line based on the results of this last week, which is fairly significant.
Next one up, we get the Pittsburgh Steelers and to Houston, Texas to take on the Texans. Teddy, 1 o'clock Eastern kick here, 10 a.m. Pacific, and we are seeing the Steelers minus 3-point road favorites pretty much across the board on the WagerTalk live odds screen, 41 being the total. Steelers at Texans.
Look headline, Pittsburgh minus 4, total of 41. My powering number, Pittsburgh minus 3.5. Last night, there were 4.5s out there on Pittsburgh over Houston. And obviously, once we saw the results of yesterday's game and how Pittsburgh took care of business against the Raiders on Sunday night, admittedly, that was at least half the Raiders just being the Raiders and screwing up. But we did see some big playability again from Kenny Pickett, his first game with a pair of TD passes in his career. All that being said, Pittsburgh also, off back-to-back big TV wins. They had plane trouble last night. They had to make an emergency landing. I don't know if that's a real factor or not, but it's not a good thing for a team that may well be in a pretty bad flat spot. C.J. Stroud, first quarterback in NFL history to have at least 900 passing yards, 4 passing touchdowns, and 0 interceptions in his first 3 starts. Tank Dell set a franchise record for receiving yards by a rookie. The rookies for Houston is stepping up. I said before the season, I like D'Amico Ryans. I still like D'Amico Ryans a lot. I think he's a bet-on coach. That being said, Houston, number 31 in the NFL in red zone efficiency. They're not scoring touchdowns given the chances and given Pittsburgh's defense. That may well be the case again in this match if you're backing the Texans here. You really want this team to score touchdowns, not field goals, when they have the opportunity.
Guys, next game up, we get the Rams and the Colts, 1 o'clock Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific kick. There's 9 in this time slot as we go back to just one Monday night game next week. We get the Rams and the Colts here, Teddy. Pick 'em or -1. We are seeing -1 on both sides. WagerTalk live odds screen right now. 45 being the total. So Rams at Colts, -1, +1, and pick 'em all available right now.
Yeah, and again, it's not like I have a big platform, but I hate the let's have 9 early games and 3 late games. You can't, once you get to 9, you can't focus on the all 9. There's no way to do it. I'll take a 7-5 ratio and be much, much happier that way because you can at least pay attention to everything that's going on, which you can't do in a 9-3 scenario. Look ahead line here for Rams, Colts. And again, this is still a look ahead line because LA hasn't played. Pick them in 44.5. My powering number, Indy -1. And the markets, basically, I'm seeing LA -1. I'm seeing Indy -1. I'm seeing pick'ems right now. How the Rams look tonight, likely to have a pretty significant impact on this point spread. We also don't know who Indy's quarterback's going to be. If it's going to be Richardson or Minshew. I said last week I thought Minshew would be just fine, and he was. He's never pretty to watch, but the mustache man finds ways to win game. And, of course, Matt Gay hitting 4 from 50 plus, which also speaks to Indy's red zone offense. It's just not there. Only gained 3.9 yards per play in that game. That likely to be something of a problem, even against LA, who has some defensive issues, at least so far this season. But a number of games here we're going to talk about that we don't have legitimate point spreads right now because half the teams, we got 4 teams playing on Monday Night Football tonight, all of whom are in different games next week, and therefore you're seeing look-ahead lines for many of these games, not true Monday morning openers.
Something I remember from a couple NFL line reports ago, guys, Minshew being in for the Colts might actually be like a power rating upgrade. I remember Teddy saying that, and definitely agreeance with you, Teddy, after watching what just this past week and seeing the market maybe moving towards the Colts as well. We got 1 o'clock Eastern kick here. Tampa Bay and New Orleans divisional matchup. 40.5 being the total, and we are seeing the Saints -3-point home favorites pretty much across the board. So we get the Bucs at the Saints in the Big Easy here, Teddy.
Yeah, look, my look headline here, New Orleans -3.5, 42. My powering number, 3.5. Last night, there were 2.5/3 for the Saints. Today, the 2.5s are gone, and it's pretty much all threes for New Orleans. We don't know what the status is yet of Derek Carr. Let me see if anything came up in the last few minutes. But he was going in for X-rays today, best I can tell. And yeah, he's got a shoulder injury, and there's no updated data in the last hour. Carr was good. You know, the defense was good for this. That's 10 straight games they've allowed 20 or less. They allowed only 1 touchdown in the first 10 quarters of the season. You can't run on New Orleans. But offensively, even with Carr, they look janky. No big plays at all right now. And when Jameis came in up 17-0, they didn't trust him at all. In theory, they didn't need to with a 3-score lead. But second half, 5 possessions, 5 punts, very conservative game plan. And then, of course, they missed the game-winning field goal. When you score a special teams touchdown and still lose straight up, that's not necessarily a good sign for Tampa. Tyrann Mathieu after the game, quote, "Losses like this hurt worse than when you get beat by 30, because when you get beat by 30, you're never in control of the game. We lose a close game like that, a game you feel you're in control of for the most part, it's frustrating. It's humbling, but that's why people love the NFL. Worth noting, the offensive line only a 33% pass win block rate and a 38% pass rush win rate against Green Bay. Offensive line did not get the job done for New Orleans in that one. Tampa obviously playing tonight. If they're 3-0, if they beat Philly tonight, this line is not going to be New Orleans -3. If they're 2-1, shoot, this line could be New Orleans -3.5. Wouldn't shock me at all. This is one result. What you think about Tampa's performance this evening, I do think that's going to have a legitimate impact. How Tampa looks on this particular line is sitting around the key number of 3. So if you like the Bucs tonight, maybe make 2 bets. If you don't like the Bucs tonight, maybe make 2 bets as well. This one, again, that Tampa, how Tampa looks. Tampa's either going to say, show to people tonight, yeah, we're not anywhere near as bad as people thought we were, or they're exactly as bad as we thought that people thought they were. So the Bucs, I would expect to have tonight's performance to have an outsized effect on the power rating number and the point spread for next week's game.
Another divisional matchup with that same scenario. The Philadelphia Eagles playing tonight. And here on October 1st, guys, they are hosting the Washington Commanders. We're seeing -7-point flat across the board here. So full touchdown favorites at home. 44.5 being the total. Again, Eagles playing tonight. So, hey, maybe make 2 bets on the card. We'll see here, Teddy. What are we thinking, Commanders and Eagles?
So look headline, Philly -7.5, 44.5. My powering number, Philly -9. The market's 744.5 last night, and that's exactly where they are this morning. Obviously, Philly plays tonight. It's a divisional matchup. I don't know that we're going to see 7.5, but if Philly looks good, we could see that number. The Commanders had a really rough game yesterday, to put it mildly. Sam Howell, we played about as bad as we can play, just got to be better. They went 1 of 9 on third downs, 0 of 1 on fourth downs, -4 in turnovers. There were 4 Howell interceptions and a fumble. Howell was sacked 9 times. The offense looked like Iowa at Penn State on Saturday night. Iowa had 4 first downs and 4 turnovers. Washington's offense, not a whole lot better than that. The defense was what shocked me, how bad the defense was. They couldn't stop the run. They had no sacks. They did not control the line of scrimmage, despite the fact that, in theory, they have one of the most dominant defensive lines in all of football. 2-0. Managers are reading their press clippings. Now, facing a divisional rival, one would anticipate they have a better showing in them.
Teddy, we got 269-270 up next. Final 1 o'clock Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific kick here. It's the Cincinnati Bengals, Tennessee Titans. Teddy, I'm seeing Titans pick 'em or -1, as high as -1.5 out there, but a lot of pick 'ems. That's the Titans at home hosting the Bengals, 43 being the total. Bengals playing tonight, but throw it over to you. Bengals at Titans from Nashville.
So this is an emergency betting alert. Dan, let's get the numbers up, or the song up, please. Emergency betting alert.
Alert.
Right, it's not coming.
Alert.
Okay. But it's an odd game to have an emergency betting alert on. This is why. Look ahead line, pick 'em, 42.5. My powering number, Cincy, -2. Open last night, Tennessee, -1.5, -2, 42. And all the money's come for Cincy, and all the money will continue to come for Cincy, even if the Bengals lose tonight. If Burrow's questionable tonight, he's probably going to play next week. That's a concern. If Burrow plays, Cincy's power rating goes up 3-4 points. They were sitting at whether they're 1-2 or 0-3, Cincinnati's power rating gets boosted if Burrow plays. And if he's questionable here, one would think he's going to play next week. The market's already telling us that. And look, the Titans had 6 first downs, 94 total yards, 2.1 yards per play yesterday. Ryan Tannehill had 30 dropbacks for 68 net yards. He was sacked 5 times. There was no chance. They literally had no chance offensively. They can't run. They can't win. And that's not an easy game plan to go up against Cincinnati. Bengals run defense has been spotty this season, but I still think it's a quality unit. I'm anticipating Bengals money. We may see a bunch of it. If you like Cincy, bet them right the frick now. For next week's game.
Attention, emergency betting alert. We can go back to the old one if we didn't have it set up, Teddy. That's just fine, guys. Hey, 1 EBA in the books. We'll see if we get another one here as we head to the afternoon kicks. 271, 272, 405 Eastern, 105 Pacific. We get AFC West battle here, Teddy. Las Vegas Raiders at the LA Chargers, 49 being the total. Heading down I-15 to the west side. That's the Raiders, -4.5. That's the Chargers at home.
Yeah, look at line. Chargers 5, 49.5. My powering number, Chargers 7. The markets opened 4. Now we're seeing 4.5s. Major injury news for both of these teams. Jimmy G got hurt for the Raiders last night. He's in concussion protocol. Not that he's been all that good, but he's better than the backup. If Jimmy D doesn't play, this line will go in favor of LA. Obviously, for the Chargers, looks like their star wide receiver, Mike Williams, out for the year. They ripped up his knee in yesterday's game. That is a big loss for Justin Herbert and company. And, the Raiders, everyone's talking about Josh McDaniels' field goal decisions last night. The Raiders stunk back-to-back weeks. The only win they have this year, they stole one in Denver. Nothing's looked good. Offense isn't working. Defense isn't working. Offensive line isn't there. Pass rush. There's not a lot to like about the Raiders right now. For the Chargers, they did everything they could to lose that game yesterday. They really did. They dominate for stretches. Can't get off the field on 4th and 6. Give up a touchdown, and now instead of a blowout, it's a sweat. And then the defense blown coverage, a fourth quarter, big play touchdown, and now Herbert's playing from behind. So they score to take the lead. They can't get off the field on third down. And then Staley loses his mind. He goes for it from their own 24 inside 2 minutes. That tells me this is not a coach who trusts his defense even a little bit. And I don't blame him in that regard. They had 7 yards per play on offense, 7.4 yards per play on offense. And they won with 12 penalties in that ball game. That said, Minnesota gave up 259 rushing yards to Philly last week, and the Chargers didn't even try to run the football. Kind of baffling. Staley found a way to win yesterday's game, but when you talk about coaches we're comfortable laying more than a field goal with, and defenses we're laying more than a field goal with, the Chargers not high on my list.
New England Patriots, Dallas Cowboys up next here, Teddy. 4:25 Eastern, 1:25 Pacific kick. 43 being the total, -7. That's the Cowboys at home in the house that Jerry built.
Look ahead line, Dallas -7.5, 43. My powering number is only 6.5 for the game. The market's splitting the difference. Mostly 7s. There are a couple of 6.5s popping up out there. Total for Dallas and New England. We've seen over money on this one, opened 41.5. Then there were 42s last night. Now I'm seeing 43s out there for New England, Dallas. The betting markets definitely like the overs, despite the fact that the Patriots defense allowed only 2.8 yards per play. They ran all day. They protected Mac Jones, no sacks. But even with that, they only had 3 scoring drives, 2 of which were field goals. Jones, when we had to make plays, we did. Definitely inconsistent. Got to be happy with the win. That's what all we came here for. That was our goal, no turnovers. And, of course, Belichick's team hasn't gone 0-3 since his first season in New England back in 2000. He's talking about these close games. Quote, it's been like this 3 weeks in a row for us. Every game decided by a touchdown or less. It was good to come out on the good end of it. For Dallas, they got punched in the face early on the road. They're down a couple offensive linemen. How are they going to respond? Well, not that well. They had 35 points per game and no turnovers the first 2 weeks. Obviously, that's unsustainable. They missed Diggs defensively. The defense was giving up big plays. The run defense got gas. They got up 222 yards on the ground yesterday. And Dak Prescott had chances to bring him back into it. I continue to think that Prescott, I'll just put it this way, he ain't winning no Super Bowl. Awful interception in the end zone to lose the game. They had 10 penalties, 72 yards in the first half. That was a Mike McCarthy game, a classic flat spot. How do they bounce back? Prescott. That was a humbling loss. We thought we had a good opportunity coming here, even with the adversity, and get a win, and we didn't. Worth noting, they missed a pair of starting linemen yesterday. Don't know if either guy is going to be back this week against a pretty feisty Patriots defense.
Teddy, we got Arizona and San Francisco up next. 4:25 Eastern kick here. 44 being the total. Large spread here, Teddy. 2 touchdowns across the board. Seeing the 49ers -14-point home favorites hosting the Arizona Cardinals. Maybe upstart Cardinals here off the big win.
Yeah, there were 4 favorites of higher than a touchdown this past week. The Dogs won straight up in 3 of those 4 games. So just because the team's big chalk doesn't mean they're going to win even straight up. Just ask anyone that had Dallas and Survivor yesterday, or Jacksonville, or Baltimore. With what half the field got eliminated in many Survivor contests, whether those 3 losses. Arizona, San Fran, look head line, 49ers -15.5, 42. My powering number, San Fran -15. The market's only at 14 today, total 42 last night. We have seen some over money, 44 coming in today. Although, again, I don't see it going any higher. There's no need to emergency betting alert. Something that already happened. Cardinals, look, the 3 games, 3 first-half leads. They come out ready. Another impressive showing from the worst team. Josh Dobbs only had 4 incompletes, no turnovers. Jonathan Gannon, the right quote. You worry about a head coach that's got his first win and a team that fought hard but lost the first 2 weeks to get their win. Do they come out with the same energy the next week? Jonathan Gannon, quote, hopefully one of many, but back to the drawing board tomorrow. That's the quote I want to see from my head coach. That said, because you're white, especially when you hear everyone saying we're going to go 0-16 to get one against the Cowboys, a great team like that, it feels good. Arizona probably doing some celebrating last night, and that concerns me in the double-digit dog roll the following week. San Fran, they're the best team in my power rings right now. They have 1 turnover the first 3 games. Defense is 5 interceptions. more than 39 minutes of possession against the Giants. 13-0 straight up the last 13 regular season games. Brock Purdy wasn't great. The Giants tried a different game plan. They blitzed him on 33 of his 39 drop packs, and what happened? He had 310 passing yards and a pair of touchdowns. Kyle Shanahan, quote, I thought it was a huge challenge, one of the bigger ones Brock has been in with the short week. Prepare for a scheme like that. There's not a comfortable play throughout the game. Thought he settled down as the game went on. San Fran is a team I'm not in any rush to step in front of. My powering number says the 49ers are a little bit cheap here, but this is probably not a game I'm going to get involved with, Drew.
We got the Sunday Nighter and Monday Nighter to finish it off here, guys, for Week 4 NFL Opening Line Report. If you're liking the content, please help us out and smash that like button and comment below. Any questions, more than welcome. We'll answer them on next week's show. We'll get some questions in here at the end of today's show. We got Kansas City and the New York Jets up next here, Teddy. -9 in the hook. That is the Chiefs as the road favorite, 42.5 being the total.
Let's throw one more emergency betting alert out there. If Dan has it, if he doesn't, then we'll do it ourselves. Emergency betting alert. Chiefs and the Jets. This is on the total. If you like the under, run. Don't walk to the betting window. There were 45s out there, down to 44.5s and 43s. There's still a prominent 43 and 42.5s out there. All the money is coming under on this one. I know KC went over the total yesterday, the team total. They scored 41 in that contest. Make no mistake about it. All right. KC, their defense is the bet on unit on this team, every bit as much as the offense. All right. So much defensive depth, and the offense got rolling against a D that's, banged up a little bit. The Jets defense is no joke. They might quit because the offense can't do anything. But from a talent standpoint, I do not see Kansas City's not moving the football up and down the field this week the way they did in yesterday's game. A pretty easy winner for my clients and I, laying the double digits with the Chiefs. One would anticipate the Jets defense to be a good notch or two tougher. I don't know what the coaching staff in New York is going to do, because it's pretty clear that everyone on the Jets hates Zach Wilson. And the team doesn't believe in him, and the defense doesn't believe in him. He had 39 dropbacks for 133 net yards. They had 22 carries for 38 yards. They couldn't run the football, 2.8 yards per play on offense. Not good. The defense had 0 sacks, and yet it's a 3-point game. They have a chance to win it. Wilson ran for a first down on 3rd and 10. There was a holding penalty, and then there was a safety on the next play, and that was that. Robert Saleh. Obviously, that's good enough overall. That's not good enough overall. 3rd downs, we just couldn't run the ball. It would help if we could help around Wilson in terms of the way we play. Overall, it just wasn't good enough from coaching to the players. They asked if he was going to stick with Wilson. Yeah, he's fine. He's who gives us the best chance to win. That's basically the cleanest answer I can give you. They have no choice. Tim Boyle's the only other quarterback on the roster. Tim Boyle's not winning NFL games. He didn't do it in his 3 career starts with Detroit in 2021. I would not expect him to do it with the Jets. They're stuck with Zach Wilson, and the team doesn't like him a whole lot. Under money flowing as we speak. We've missed the very best of it. I would not be surprised if more under comes in on this one, the Sunday night affair.
Second EBA in the books here, guys.
Yeah, my apologies. Sometimes with the emergency betting alert, I get distracted. Look headline, KC 8.5, 44.5. Powering number, KC 10.5. Open Sunday night, 9 and 43. And we're seeing downward pressure on the total, upward pressure on the line. Not a lot of support in the markets for the New York Football Jets as we speak.
Teddy, we got one Monday night game here. We'll hit a couple questions, guys, before we get out of here. Seattle Seahawks, New York Giants, Monday night, October 2nd. 46.5 at most shops for the total. Are seeing -1, mostly -1.5 at some shops. That's the Giants at home. Intriguing handicap here, Teddy. What are we thinking Monday night?
Yeah, this line, we've seen a flip of favorites overnight. Last night I didn't even have this as a potential emergency betting alert, and obviously we would have done the show 2 hours ago. It would have been the biggest emergency betting alert out there, because this says a flip of favorites. Look headline, Seattle -1.5, 44.5. My powering number, Seattle -2. Opened last night, Seattle -1.5, 45. And we've seen the money come for the Giants and the over. And I can understand why you're betting the over. I mean, the defense not impressive for Seattle. It's hard to lay points with teams that can't get stops. Gino's got to be chucking the football around. Do you know they have multiple injury woes? Seattle came into the game missing 7 starters. They lost cornerback Trey Brown, concussion, defensive end Draymond Jones, and neither one came back in the game. So they could be about 9 starters this week. That's why the money's coming for the G-men. 8 false start penalties for Carolina in that ball game. It was basically the crowd having a big impact. Defensive tackle John Reed, that was amazing. They were allowing me more of that each and every home game. Of course, Seattle has been excellent traveling east for the early start games. This is an early start ball game for this one. For the G-men, look, I mean, Danny Dimes, 34 dropbacks, 121 net yards. And if you want to read a fun article, read the quotes from San Fran about Danny Jones and his $160 million contract in the offseason. They're basically insulted that he got money because he's not very good. And he was, look, they've been behind by double digits at the half 3 times in 3 games. They don't have Saquon Barkley. Offensive lines without Andrew Thomas, the left tackle, and the left guard, Brent Breederson. Brian Dable, quote, no excuses with anyone who missed the game or who played. We've just got to be better. Giants. Interesting game on Monday night. I'm going to think I'm not even going to give this is one that we're going to run through the brain for a day or two before we decide which way we're going to look. Right now, the injury report for Seattle, ugly. That's why the money flowing for the G-men.
Going to sleep on it Monday night. Intriguing handicap, absolutely. Teddy, great job breaking the games down. Guys, we got a couple questions here, both in the live chat and from last week's show. If you have a question for this week, feel free to comment below on the YouTube channel, and Teddy and I will be in there throughout the week answering any questions, chopping it up with you guys. Any opinions, what you're looking to bet, all is welcome below, and let us know where you're listening from. We got Ottawa, Canada in the house, Essex, England. If you're watching from any cool places, let us know. Always cool to shout it out here on the show. Michael from last week in the comments, Teddy, does your power rating number include home field adjustment, if any?
Yes. So when I give my power rating number for the game, it's Team A power rating minus Team B power rating, and I'm using a pretty consistent 1.5 points for home field. So Team A minus Team B plus 1.5 for the home team, and that's the formula for my power ratings. It's fairly simple. So yes, my power rating number does factor in the home field advantage of the game. Great question, and Paul from Essex, England. I remember him. He's been watching us for years, man. Hey, Paul.
Oh yeah.
Cheers.
Oh yeah. What's up, Paul? We got Bam Golf in the house as well. He's a VIP here, Teddy. How accurate are those paid sites that have data percentages on tickets on the side, total, and where percent of the money actually is? Where is that info coming from? Is it accurate? I can tell you from working at one of those sites, Bam Golf, take it with a grain of salt. No, it is not accurate. And the people because betting content, Teddy, is getting to the point where it's very simple. You can see the line move and then see the percentages and you go, oh, this is the sharp side. I'm telling you, that stuff is way overrated. Do not handicap that way, guys. That's my advice, Teddy. And no, it's not that accurate. But any opinion here?
So let me start with this. Every Sunday, usually about 2 hours before kickoff, I try to send out a team, and I call it my take on today's Sharp Square NFL Divide. Yesterday, this is what I said. Pros have bet. Broncos, well, they were wrong. Commanders, well, they were wrong. Dirty Birds, well, they were wrong. Atlanta's no good. And Raider Nation. That's 0 for 4 for the wise guys. Okay? All wrong sides, every one of them. The Joes bet yesterday. Patriots, winner. Seahawks, winner. Dolphins, winner. Lions, winner. Cowboys, loser. It's not always the pros are winning and the Joes are losing. So the concept of let's look at these consensus sites and get an idea all the Joes are going to lose today, all the pros are going to win, that doesn't work every week in the NFL. When it comes to where I get my like how do I get those, particularly the Joe, I look at 5 or 6 sites. Any one given site isn't necessarily going to give you an accurate picture. I question all that data. When you see 5 or 6 different sites and they're all pointing in the same direction, all right, this is reasonable. But 1 site, 2 sites, not enough. I do question a lot of that data. Excellent question. Thanks for asking.
We got maybe the comment of the show here, Teddy. Russ saying, Staley makes me feel like I could be a good NFL coach. I thought that was worth a little chuckle here. But yeah, huge shout out to everybody chiming in the live chat, in the comments below from last week's video. And all the people that liked it. Guys, please comment below on this week's video as well. Teddy, great job as always. Throw it over to you. Any final thoughts here for the show before we shut it down?
Yeah, so look, the show's gaining traction right now. Drew and I have been doing it for many years. I've been doing this show for the better part of the last 20 years in one form or another. And finally, we're getting some traction. Please, if you like the show, tell your friends. All right? Give us a like. Give us a comment. Subscribe to the channel. We appreciate it all. Best of luck with all your wagers. Good luck Monday Night Football. And good luck Week 4 of the NFL. Thanks for watching. Cheers.
He's Teddy Covers. I'm Drew Martin. That does it, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next Monday, 10 a.m. Pacific time. Come back and join us. Cash those tickets.